What is up, guys? We are at the mid-season mark of this NFL season. And with that, I have been updating my Dynasty ranks. So today we're going to go over my top 25 wide receivers in Dynasty. We're going to count down from 25 to 1. So stay tuned after the intro. What's up, guys, and welcome in. So we're going to get this kicked off with my 25 through 21. And just to kind of preface this, it's really hard to make one-size-fits-all Dynasty ranks, right? Things can definitely change depending on if it's a startup, if you're a contender, if you are a rebuilder. So if you go to my Twitter, I actually have them within tiers as well, which can hype a little bit. But just for today, this is kind of just a general look at how I would rank the Dynasty wide receivers. But there can definitely be some slight differences depending on the needs and wants of your team. So to get it kicked off at number 25, we have George Pickens. I just think with Pickens, he looked like an alpha with Deontay Johnson out. Now, things have been a little rough since Deontay came back, just because Deontay is such a good route runner, and I think Kenny Pickett is definitely looking for him. But moving forward, I think Pickens has definitely shown enough to be this high in the rankings. He's young. He's a great red zone threat. He goes and gets the ball. And once you start listing these guys out, it gets really hard to kind of pick. And I'm just going to bet on his talent moving forward. So next is going to be DJ Moore, number 24. Couple of huge games with Justin Fields, couple rough games the past couple of weeks since Fields has been out. Do we even know if Fields is going to be there long term? But I think for DJ Moore, this is just about where you put him, right? He's obviously a great wide receiver. He's just had a bunch of QB struggles in his career. He puts up some monster games. He looks good. But I think just in general, he's a great wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for your team. And he's young enough that he has plenty of years to come. So number 23, this one's hard, right? I could see having Adams a lot higher, and I definitely did preseason. But this season has just been really tough for Adams. And I think with the subpar QB play, I don't know if it's going to get any better. He definitely still has the upside. But with the age and the downside he's starting to show this year, just the inconsistency, this is just about where I have him. Now, 22 is another guy that moved down in my ranks, and that's DK Metcalf. I do think he's an explosive wide receiver, but with Geno Smith regressing a little bit back to the mean from his amazing season last year, DK kind of just hasn't been having those big games. And with Tyler Lockett and JSN there, I just don't think there's enough passing volume to really go around. So DK kind of just seems to be someone that really isn't producing like you would like them to produce. So I don't see how you can have them as a wide receiver 1 or even a high wide receiver 2 right now in Dynasty. Next is going to be Michael Pittman, and I think I've loved everything I've seen out of Michael Pittman. He has produced very well. I think for me, the thing is they were trying to trade for a wide receiver, so they may bring in a third guy this offseason, whether it's in the draft or free agency. I liked what I've seen out of Josh Downs, and this could be really similar to that Seattle situation if a third guy gets in there, where as good as I think Michael Pittman could be, splitting the passing load 3 ways is definitely tough unless you're an elite passing offense. So next, 20, and there are going to be 3 wide receivers on this next set. But starting off Puka Nacua, man, draft capital-wise, not insane. But when it comes down to production, this dude has been an absolute monster. Over 20 points a game without Cooper Kupp. Still about 15 points per game with Cooper Kupp. So I think the fact that he's shown both of those is really just essential for his value moving forward. Now, it's tough with the Rams, Stafford being out. We saw the downside of what that can look like. And with just enough uncertainty around Puka and that offense, I'm not going to put him in the top 10. But, he's someone that can definitely rise up as that offense excels, or if we learn a little more about Stafford's injury and how it's going to look maybe moving forward in Dynasty, right? We have to look forward and not just directly at the present when it comes to our Dynasty ranks. Next is going to be a couple veterans in Keenan Allen and Cooper Kupp. Keenan Allen has been just an absolute monster this year, right? Especially with Mike Williams going down. He's the number one target on that offense. His age obviously is a question mark, which is why I have him at 19 instead of a top 10 guy as he is in redraft. But really no worries this year and probably next year as he's still under contract with the Chargers. Cooper Kupp as well, when he's on the field, amazing. But Stafford off, Kupp's missed some games. I think there's just enough downside that Kupp shouldn't be an elite guy. But I love having him as my wide receiver too, especially if you are in a contending mode. Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, great guys to go get. Zay Flowers here at 17. He's looked explosive. He has only scored one touchdown, which is why it's just enough to keep him outside the top 15 here. But that Ravens offense looks amazing. Lamar has been awesome. And I think moving forward, Flowers is the number one wide receiver behind Mark Andrews as a receiving option. But he just looks like a great player. And I think for years to come, Flowers is going to be producing for Baltimore. Next, Jordan Addison, someone who has just absolutely been balling out. Now, I had him a couple weeks ago slightly higher, but with no Kirk Cousins, and now we're weeks closer to Jefferson coming back, I just bumped him down a tiny bit. I still think Addison's an incredible value, and he's actually even more hyped than this rank. So I think if I was doing a startup right now, I probably wouldn't get any Addison. I think he's a great player. He is the wide receiver 2 on his own team. And sometimes you have to be careful with those. As much as we like those players, if there's an elite asset, we definitely have to be careful, right? So moving into 15, this is someone that's just flew up the ranks this year, and that's going to be Brandon Ayuk. He's 25. He's an elite asset on his own team. It does help that Debo's been out, and that offense can be slightly tough to predict when Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, CMC are all healthy. But Ayuk's looked good. He's on a great offense. We'll see what happens with Purdy, but I trust Shanahan enough to keep Ayuk involved. And with his age and production right now this season, I think this is a great slot for him. Next is going to be my number one rookie wide receiver going into the year. And I think what I've seen the last couple of weeks is JSN's getting more involved in the passing offense coming out of the bye. You know, couple big 50-yard plus games. Those aren't monsters, but 3 in a row for JSN. And I think that's great news. So his age, his draft capital, and just his production moving forward, I think JSN is a very safe wide receiver. He may never be wide receiver 5, but I think he's going to be valuable for years to come. You know, think about Tyler Lockett, right? Tyler Lockett has not disappeared. And if he can be even similar to that, JSN, well deserving of being in the teens here. Moving forward, T. Higgins definitely had a slight resurgence since he's got healthy, paired with Joe Burrow's health coming back. So I feel great about T. Higgins. Now, the hope would be T. Higgins can be the one on a team this offseason if they let him go. You know, being behind Jamar Chase, it definitely can be tough. But T. Higgins is a great talent, a great possession receiver, big body guy, great at catching the ball. And I'm very comfortable with him here at 13. Now, number 12, Drake London. This might be a little higher than someone has him, but I just think Drake London is a great talent. And with how the Falcons have looked, I'm starting to think Arthur Smith may be on the chopping block this offseason, which would be a positive for guys like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, etc. He still has had a fairly productive season besides his bagel week 1. So I think moving forward, I think Drake London should be great. I think he's an asset, an elite asset for your dynasty team. Coming in here, number 11, Devonta Smith, just a great talent on a great offense. Now, he's behind A.J. Brown, and this year that has been more evident than ever, right? A.J. Brown is an absolute dog. But Dallas Goedert's going to miss 4 or 5 weeks going on IR. And I think Smith is about to remind some of us why he's such an elite asset, right? He's a great player tied to Jalen Hurts. And I think that safety and upside of that offense and his talent alone is why I have him up here at number 11. Now we're getting into the top 10. So number 10, Steph Diggs. What can I say? Buffalo's number 1 wide receiver, just an absolute stud, top guy. Just his age is holding him back from being a top 5 asset. But if you are in a win now, you really have no replacement value for a guy like Stephon Diggs. Second, number 9 here, Tyreek Hill, same thing, right? Probably the number wide receiver in the NFL right now, especially with Justin Jefferson on IR. Hill's been an absolute monster. His age is the only thing holding him back from being a top 5 asset, very similar to Steph Diggs. But, I still think he has a couple more years left, and you really can't replace wide receiver 1 numbers. So if you can go get Tyreek Hill at this value, I still think it's worth it, especially this offseason when people are going to try to move on from these older guys as they do every year. Number 8, Chris Olave. Spoke with Chris Olave on Flex Friday with Andy last week, and he did score this weekend. Happy to see it. He's just a great talent. A lot of good measurables when it comes to air yards, target share. I just think he needs to really click with Derek Carr, which is hopefully starting to come to the front. But just a top guy, first-round draft capital. They traded up to get him. And Chris Olave is not going anywhere. He's the number 1 wide receiver on that team. And he's young. He's got that youth asset when it comes to dynasty bet. I just think Chris Olave is a great player. Jalen Waddle up at number 7. Now, this may be a little high. This is the number 1 wide receiver when it comes to out of like the number 2 on their own team guys, right? Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins. You want to say JSN, DK Metcalf, right? A couple guys in the top 25. I just, A, still believe in his talent. And I think, B, if we're holding Tyreek to that, I'm going to be gone in 2 years, could Jalen Waddle just move into more of a target hog role similar to Tyreek? That I think the upside of those two things combined is enough for me to keep him this high. He will be behind Tyreek in the pecking order as long as Tyreek is on that team. But I think the upside's there on this elite offense. And then number 6, Garrett Wilson. Could have been number 3 with, a potential season from Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers obviously out this year with the Achilles. But Garrett Wilson's just a great player. It's evident when you watch him that he is an elite wide receiver. Just had a tough year with Zach Wilson, but still found a way to produce, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 numbers. So I'm just confident that moving forward, Garrett Wilson's going to be around. Now, the one worry would be if he gets constantly paired with bad QBs, could he be in a similar DJ Moore category? Of course, but it does seem like Rodgers may come back later this year. I don't know if I buy that, but definitely next year. And I could see Garrett Wilson really showing us why he was going so early this offseason when he thought he was going to be playing with Aaron Rodgers. Now for the top 5. Amon-Ra St. Brown, man. This dude is just an absolute beast for the Lions on an offense that looks really, really good under Jared Goff, which is kind of crazy when you think a couple years ago when the Rams just kind of got rid of Goff, but Amon-Ra is the number 1 guy there. They score a bunch of points. He's an absolute target hog, and we all know how good Amon-Ra St. Brown is on the field. Number 4, A.J. Brown, right? That crazy streak of 125 yards or more in games. He is just absolutely targeted by Jalen Hurts. And I think something that's really important to notice this year is that defenses have been playing the Eagles a little more back, dropping those safeties back. And A.J. Brown not only is their number 1 deep threat, but he's also their number 1 possession guy. So he's getting the targets, he's getting the big plays, he's getting everything you want from a fantasy wide receiver. Number 3, CeeDee Lamb. His last 2 weeks, he showed us why he's an elite guy, right? He's Dak's guy. And CeeDee Lamb is just such an incredible talent. And he's so young that having him at number 3 is just a no-brainer. Number 2, Jamar Chase. Obviously, I forgot to put Chase in there, but we all know Jamar Chase, right? On the Bengals, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, an incredible asset. Just getting all the looks. He can have some lower games just because of T. Higgins being there. And sometimes that offense has gone through some sputtering parts where they target other guys. But I think when it comes down to it, we all want Jamar Chase on our team. And number 1, Justin Jefferson. Even though he's hurt, this dude is an absolute monster. I'm not worried about quarterback. I'm not worried about the injury. He's going to come back, and he's going to remind us all why he's the number 1 player in fantasy, dynasty-wise. And when it comes down to it, this dude's going to get paid like no other, and he's going to be there for years to come. I feel like Kirk Cousins may even come back next year, see what happens. But Kevin O'Connell in that offense, they're going to feature Justin Jefferson, and it's just going to be, smooth sailing once he comes back for his injury. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'd love to hear your ranks, hear where you agree, hear where you disagree. Hit me up on Twitter at Where's Waldorf. Shoot me a comment below. Follow me. I really want to grow my following, speak to you guys more, talk to you more on Twitter. So hit me up, right? Thank you guys for tuning in, and catch us Friday for Flex Friday.